Welcome to episode 2 of The Grow Show with Keshelle and Dr.
Glenn Davis.
Or Dr. Glenn Davis and Keyshia. I always like to do that because, I don't know why you have my name first. But anyway, and so, last episode we introduced the show.
Yes.
And today I thought it was important for us to really just get to know who we are as individuals, because they see Keshelle, they see Glenn, they may see us together. But I personally am inspired by you and your story, even if we weren't husband and wife. And so I want to share with, the audience or the listeners, who are you? Where did you come from? Before you was Dr. Glenn, or before you was this author and this so-and-so. I told someone I felt some type of way. You even have more speaking engagements and speaking requests for the year, more than me now. Like, but that's the end result.
No reason to feel some type of way. You are an international speaker. I get there.
Like, come on, your calendar's more booked than mine in 2023.
I tell the truth, a lot of the engagement was given to you and you pass on to me. I was like, no, you take those. I passed that stage right now.
We digress. How did you, tell us your story. Who's Glenn? Where did you start from?
All right, so I'll give you a brief synopsis of who is Glenn and then how I get to Dr. Glenn. I am number 6 in the line of 10 children. My mom had 10 of us. We grew up in Regent Park and from humble beginnings. One of the key things from my family was that out of all of the 10 children, 2 of us graduated from high school. For me, that was an issue. However, in my home, a lot of the times when we hear our parents speak, it was never about education, and it was always, hurry up, get out my house and go look for a job. Hurry up, finish school, look for a job. The ironic thing about it, all that finished school was never the emphasis, more or less was look for a job. Okay. Anyway, my older sister, she finished school, and then I finished high school. Nobody else, everybody else dropped out. So for me, that was a generation thing in our family. Even the grandchildren started to drop out of school. At an early age, I tell myself, I say, you know what, I don't want to drop out of school. I want to be able to go on and finish school and get a nice job. Of course, it wasn't about college and all that stuff because that was not ever discussed in my house. In fact, I just know we didn't have the money for college. But I had a neighbor who I hang out with, and his family, his mom and aunt, always talk about college and all that stuff. And so by being around them, I got the notion. Because even when I signed up for college, I didn't sign myself up. He signed me up.
Right.
And I give him the documents and he sent it in. So I went to UB, I got my first degree.
I have to stop you and ask you right there, because I know you.
Yeah.
So this is me now knowing you. You can continue your story in a minute, but were you mad that he signed you up? Because you used to get mad when I sign you up for stuff.
Actually, I wasn't mad, but it didn't just happen right away. You know me, I have to process it because I have to figure out how am I going to... It was just easy for him to say, fill it out, fill it out, fill it out. But I'm thinking about where's the money coming from and all that
all
stuff.
the details.
Yes. And so it took a little while for me to... And then coming to the deadline, he just kept pressuring and kept asking. And so eventually I gave him the stuff and he took them in.
Okay,
and
good.
Eventually the money came. The money came through me working. The money came through the bank paying for some of the portion of the courses. And so eventually I end up getting the degrees. But it didn't come naturally, and it didn't come because I come from a family of educators. It came because I had this friend or family who pushed their children, and by association, by me being in the same vicinity, in the same area, I was now able to take that and run with it. And so once I signed up for college and got my first degree, the education bug bit. I went for the second, the third, and I just kept going. And somewhere in the midst of that, I'm saying, okay, I want to be that person in my family to reach the highest level in my area. Because nobody else had ever reached that.
What did that experience teach you about growth in general? I mean, I just listening to your story, and I've heard that story many times now. From this context, what did it teach you about growth in general?
Well, in terms of growth in general, once I started to grow, once I got in it and I started to grow, I didn't have all the support that I needed. I didn't have the financial support. I didn't have the backing, and some things that I probably wouldn't even share in open air with people who I expected to elevate me and push me and encourage me. It didn't happen. And so, but it didn't stop the drive, because now my drive is bigger than the support. My drive was now, I am this person in my family that people can look to as an example.
Right.
When I start to have kids, I want my kids to be able to look. Before, I didn't have all that in my purview.
Right.
But once I started to grow, I started to see more. And then once I started to see that this is a generational curse, where the children are dropping out of high school, the grandchildren starting to drop out of high school, I now have to position myself to be able to help my nieces and nephews to be able to now don't follow the same path that everybody else was following.
Yeah. And I the things that I heard is you had to go in order to recognize or be bitten by that growth bug, and having the drive. Sometimes we don't have it at the beginning.
Yeah.
We just know that perhaps that's the direction we want to go, and so that's what I heard. And then the second thing that I heard, Glenn, was your friend. He was the growth-oriented one because he was exposed, to it. And so, that, how I feel. I always talk about who is in your corner. Who are the people who are pushing you to grow? Because sometimes we don't see it for ourselves, or we see it too late, or whatever reason. Who is that person who will fill in the application, or who will give you that opportunity just to get you into that growth path? And those are the two things that I heard.
And a critical part of the growth too is that you may not always get the support that you think you're going to get from the people who you think you should get it from. But don't let that stop the growth. And that's just with anything, not just with education, with anything in life. Yesterday Apostle said, "Go with the goers," and that just resonated with me.
Listen, go with the goers.
Go with the goers.
And you can even say, "Go with the growers."
Yes, go with the goers and the growers. But now that you heard about me and my humble beginning story, tell me something about who is Keyshia and how do you get to this place?
Wow. So for me, I didn't grow up obviously with 10 siblings. I had 4 siblings. I'm in the middle. Well, you could be in the middle of 4. But anyway, I'm the second child. I'm this first daughter, second child. I always grew up, I guess, remembering that time, knew that I was special. I was always a daddy's girl, or felt that way. And although I think I've gotten dethroned back then,
about 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, many times over now. That's how I grew up, and I was always smart, always top of class or in the top stream of class. So I was always interested I know myself in learning and growth. My daddy was a teacher, retired teacher now, and I could remember when he worked to BTVI and he was responsible for buying the books for, the classes. Those times when he brought the books in, where I was like a kid in the candy store, because I want to see what daddy buy now. Of course, the books ain't for me. The books for the students who signing up for the classes. But I know when I go in that box, if I see a book that resonated with me, and these were books for all topics, career, beauty, all of the topics that was there. I could say, "Daddy, I want this one." And he would usually buy extras. So I'm like, "Daddy, I want this one." And I would take the books. And so I remember that I don't even know how old I was. But I remember that growing up. And so, of course, graduated at 16. Top of the class, also one of the youngest in the class. So with honors, being the youngest in the class, graduated at 16, future ahead of me. I was always a little troublesome.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't miss out that part. Always like your own way.
I was like rebellious, not rude.
You like to do your own thing. Don't want nobody tell you nothing.
But I was always independent,
don't want nobody tell me nothing.
Daddy would say stubborn. You're so stubborn. Because I guess I always knew what I wanted.
Driven.
I was always driven, and I was always, I can do it. If I get in trouble, well, let me get in trouble, but I can do it anyway. And that's from double passing my ears to wearing gold in school when prefects were not supposed to wear gold. I was still wearing gold hair as a prefect until, until someone reported me. A mother reported me, I was that prefect wearing gold hair, and of course, so I was always that type of person. So graduated at 16, got pregnant at 17.
Okay. Wow.
So of course, this future that I saw, that, family saw, in some cases, I guess were dashed in, I don't know if in their eyes, because they never said it, but in certain people's eyes.
Before you go on, I can put this stick up in there, so I don't want you to get around it, because you always say this. What was the pivotal comment that you recall from you being a teen mom that really got to you or stood out to you?
That, whichever day that was, I don't know what day it was, but I remember when a family member, I won't call a name because then people can speculate, or I wouldn't even say what the relation is, but a family member called. And I remember getting ready for something. It could be work, it could be college. I was in UB, COB back then. And I remember she called and she said, Abby, which is what they call me. And she said, you messed up your life. And I never forgot that. She was like, well, I heard you pregnant and you messed up your life. And I remember, I didn't say anything. I don't remember saying anything because I know me. I could talk back to you in my head.
Tune you up.
I can tune you up. So I could be nice and tactful, but I probably said something in my head. But I remember what I felt. I didn't feel shame. I didn't feel disappointed. I felt a little bit of anger. And I felt, oh, I can show you. Messed up who life? Me? And that's how I am. Like, don't tell me I can't do something. Don't tell Keshelle, and you know this about me.
First hand, second hand.
If you tell me I can't do it, watch yourself. I can work to make sure you know that I did it. And so that was that drive, And I always had drive. I always had potential. But when I got pregnant, that was that I guess, moment where I'm like, okay, all right, you say I messed up my life, watch me. And of course, when I had Keshelle, my beautiful daughter, who's now going to be 23, who is graduated from university, living on her own, she's way better than me. When I was 23, like, she keeps me proud. But I left UB. I remember my water broke actually in the university yard. I've never told that story publicly. My water broke at COB. I got picked up from COB because I wasn't driving. I remember going home and I'm like, Mom, my water broke. And we quickly got to the hospital. But she was that moment when she came, I dropped out of university. And you know what? I didn't drop out of university because of Shelly. Yeah. I never wanted to be in university in the first place.
We always talk about that.
She just was a reason.
Yeah, that education
but
stuff.
I guess I always had that entrepreneurial bent. Like, why I gotta learn biology and all of these stuff which y'all is teaching at UB. Why I gotta learn that if I want to start my business anyway? Yeah. So after having her, fast forward, I then had that drive. And it was certain people at certain times on the journey, Chevy being one, Samita being one, and you shared in your story how someone pushed you. When I got my first job after having my daughter, or my first official job, I would say, there was a supervisor, she saw my love for teaching and learning. Excuse me, at that point it was technology. I still have technology to this day. And she was like, Keyshelle, I was a teller. And she was like, Keyshelle, I see you like technology. We have this new system at the bank. Can you teach the branch this system? And I was like, sure, I would love to. I taught the branch. And then she come back and asked, well, can you go to that branch? And then that branch, and then that branch. And I'm like, hold on. I signed up to teach the whole branch, all the branches. But that was, again, that moment that someone pushed me into my destiny of teaching, of technology, etc. And I don't think I ever looked back. It was just one thing after the other, and I'm grateful to God as to kind of where I am now in my career. I still have a long ways to go, but that's really how it started. And
one of the things that I would always say to you, like, I mean, of course, you tell people you have a daughter. Everybody knew you had a daughter, but you never shared the story. And I'm like, you have to tell that story because it is not normal. My sister, God rest her soul, she was a teenage mom.
yeah.
And the minute she got pregnant, my father threw a fit and basically put her out. Right? When I spoke to your dad when I was trying to get your hand in marriage, he explained the whole story. He was like, when you got pregnant, he was not going to throw you out there. And so it's not normal that a teen mom reached the level of success. The statistics show different, that once you become a teen mom, the life take a different direction and the focus is more on the kid and all that stuff. But your story was different and it's not normal. And so people need to hear that, you know what, you can quote unquote mess up your life, as other people may say, or you may make certain decisions while you were young or a teen, but that your life don't stop there. There's so much opportunity to grow. There's so much opportunity to become. And so that's what fascinates me about your story.
And I want to say now, while it's there, and I know that we can go on another tangent, but I thank my parents for not being the type of parent who was normal in that day when a child got pregnant. And my parents were in the church.
They were in the
Dad
church.
was a pastor, mom, I don't think was a deacon yet, but they were in the church. And so it was normal to be ashamed and put out.
Push you on the side and
hide
you and do all that stuff.
And I never felt in one time or the other felt that, I knew I disappointed them.
Yes.
But I never felt abandoned or anything of that sort. They just covered me.
The community was there.
So I think that was a big part of it as well.
That makes it different. I want to say that, even though that's not what this show is all about, when people mess up, they need their community. Just don't throw people out there by themselves. It's difficult to fend and to fight by yourself. But if you have your community behind you, you still can grow from whatever it is. All right? So let's get back on track as to who our audience and what we want to say and talk about these three areas that we're so passionate about.
Yeah, and so, his story and my story now becomes our story for the Growth Show. Yes. Because when we talk about who our audience is, we are our audience. Yes. We are lovebirds. Yes. We are legacy leaders, and we are lifelong learners. And so, when we think of, for example, lovebirds, we want to talk to lovebirds who, no matter how long you've been married, once you're married, you are here. We want to speak to you. And you can be stuck. You can feel stuck or stagnant in your marriage. Like, you know what, you're just going through the rut. We want to be able to provide those resources, that information, that knowledge for you to grow, and we do that through our marriage ministry now, but we want to use this platform to extend it.
It's one of the things that happened after we did the 242 Love show last year. What happened? We would go in the mall, we would go in the gas station, in the food store, no matter where we go, people would walk up to us. I remember you from ZNS, I remember you from the TV. And one of the things that always stood out to me is when they would say that you guys were so real and so transparent. And so that resonated with people who were going through different issues in their relationship, in their marriage, and felt like, listen, other people are going through this and they find ways to work through it. How can we work through it? And I remember one lady said to me, don't stop. Keep doing it. But I said, well, that show was just a one-time thing. She said, no, keep doing it. And at the time, we weren't really talking about a Growth Show. But she said, no, don't stop that because you're helping some people. In fact, the lady said, you helped me and my husband. And they were older. In fact, she got older. She got married older, 50s. And she was like, you guys helped us. So that's what we want to do. That's the type of... And then your marriage could be great.
also.
Yeah, you can share with other person some of the things. And what I always like to say to people, there is no one size fit all. There is
Yeah.
no, because Keshelle and Glenn do this, it's going to work. It's just about getting the knowledge. I remember Pastor Miles, God rest his soul, he would always say this: love is not the most important thing in a marriage. And when he said that, I stared this man down like, what is he talking
Yeah, I
about?
remember that.
Love is not the most important thing in a marriage. He said knowledge is. So once you have the knowledge, and I remember when we first got married and when we used to be having you would say loud discussion, but I say we used to be arguing and fussing and cussing and fighting. She said loud discussion.
Don't say cussing, man.
Yeah, yeah. That's just, you know, you can see
no, let's just
okay,
people.
good. All right, so you, all right, see what I tell you? I can keep it real and I can keep it transparent. To fake and to pretend, I want to keep it real so you could know this is a real world and marriage is real work and I get a real cuss up. But anyhow, so back to the point. A lot of the times when we were having our disagreement, it was because of the lack of knowledge.
It was,
and
yeah.
I would always say to you, babes, don't give me tea if I'm asking for Milo. And I was not literally, that's me saying, if I'm telling you I like Milo and you giving me tea, you're not listening to what I like and what I say I love. And
Knowledge,
so because
yeah.
you don't have the knowledge, you don't use the knowledge, we were having this friction. So knowledge is key. And so for us, what took us to 9 years or 10 years of being together was knowledge and learning about each other and learning. And you never stop learning about the person who you're with.
No.
Never.
No.
You know, this is something that you take, because as we grow, we transform and we change.
Yep.
And so the Keyshia that I know 9, 10 years ago, the Keyshia that I know 2 years ago, let's not even go back to that. The Keyshia that I know 2 years ago is a totally different Keyshia because of the growth. Man, the Keyshia with your family know is a different.
Oh yeah, they still don't know me.
Your family don't know you could go in the kitchen and cook a meal. No, I'm serious. The Keyshia that they know couldn't even boil water.
I didn't want to.
This ain't the Keyshia now. No, but some of the things you didn't want, but some of the things you also couldn't.
Yeah.
You remember
I didn't know I didn't want to.
You remember the first meal that you made for me?
We can talk about that.
And you made that omelet for me, and you took all the salt from Salt Pan and put it in it. But now, there's a different version of you, and it comes back from that element and that willingness to grow.
Yeah, yeah. So it's for lovebirds.
Yeah.
And then it's also for legacy leaders and these young people. I say young people because
this is my area. I get passionate when I start to talk about leadership. I get passionate about it because that's something that I study. That's something that I live.
Yeah.
And then even being under a leader like Apostle and his style of leadership, it just create that passion for more and wanting to see more, where you're empowered to use your gift. You know what I'm saying? And I've been in situations where you're not empowered to use your gift. So I see both ends of the spectrum. And so for the legacy leader, you are preparing that person to take over from you.
Yeah.
And you're not intimidated because you're not thinking about, oh, this person will take my job. I remember working in the financial service sector, and my assistant was able to take over after I leave as a manager of client care because she was being taught.
Yes.
And not only just to take over after I leave, I could have gone to lunch, I could have taken vacation, I could have gone to seminars because I didn't feel like, oh, I can't leave the bank because nobody there to take over, No, I was preparing people to leave while I was there, not while I was leaving.
Right.
So when I left, it was easy for the person to transition. Into leadership.
And it's important. I remember when I was executive director of the chamber, when I left, my assistant was able to, and I love her to death to this day. I made sure, I'm like, look, I am only going to be here for a period. I need you to know what I know, and I need you to take over. And I said, if you even want a particular role, I am going to speak to the CEO and see how you can get that official role. But until then, you carry on until they find someone or until you decide what you want to do. And that is, I don't know how common that is.
It is not common. And I'm telling you, I have 27 years in the financial service sector, and I have 15 years in academia, 2 different industry. And it's the same. Like, people hold on to leadership position and they hoard leadership position and knowledge. It's not general. Now, one of the things that stood out to me was with my former boss. He would mentor me and show me things, and I was not interested in the position. I would always tell him, I say, sir, I'm not interested in this position. Why are you teaching me all these things? And he was like, no, I'm preparing you for the position. I said, but you ain't hearing me. I don't want a position. And so sometimes what he would do, he would allow me to go in meetings. He said, well, I'm not feeling well today. I need you to sit in a meeting for me. And so what he was doing, he was getting me to learn and to get information. So whenever the time comes, when I come around and decide I want a position, I was able to act. And yes. And so when I eventually accept the position, a lot of the other persons in the similar roles, they were saying that we were never mentored. We don't have no information. In fact, we just get thrown in this position. We don't know what to do. And I'm like, but I know what to do because my boss before me, he taught me what to do. And so I have a strong appreciation for that in terms of the mentorship and passing it on.
Yeah. And you know, in this case, the book Passing It On by Dr. Miles Monroe, God rest his soul, and Take the Lead. You know, we have now the honor of two of the leaders that we have learned from, spiritual leaders, with books. And I just wanted to put that plug in there, you know, because you have Take the Lead by now Bishop Valentino Williams and Passing It On by Dr. Miles Monroe. Those are really good books.
And character and leadership.
I mean, there's so many. I think we get in trouble if we start to list them.
No, they are particular ones that I gravitated to. Yes, when I got a lot, even when I was doing my doctorate, one of the things that I studied was the character and leadership book.
Yeah. And for me, I guess we're going to go to the next audience, but I don't know if I was ever passionate about leadership. You know, even under the Business and Training Authority, when clients would call and say, Keyshia, we need you to teach a leadership course. And I'm like, okay, you could pay me, I could teach it, but I really want to do it. But I think for me, where the passion in leadership and legacy leadership comes from is, how are you leading in your industry? So, you know, are you leading your industry, right? Are you the top of your industry? Are you leading in your career? Are you leading in your ministry? Are you leading in your ministry? Are you leading in your business? And do you have that legacy mindset to say, okay, you know what, I'm leading, I'm in the top, I'm dominating in this area. And when I leave, I want to be remembered. I want to do something, whether it be one thing or 10 things, that they can say Keyshelle was here. And that's where my passion comes from.
And I think it was Pastor Miles who said that if you die as a leader and your business die with you and all that legacy dies with you, you would have failed as a leader.
Yeah. And lastly, lifelong learners.
That's your area.
Lifelong learners, I think, you know, when you think of who are we talking about when we talk about lifelong learners, these are the people who learning and growing and knowledge is a part of you. You know, for me, I cannot not learn. I cannot not seek knowledge. You know, we have this joke about one thing, if one thing with Keyshelle, or you ain't gonna work with Keyshelle if you ain't gonna not get knowledge, or something we would play with. But it's the persons who always have a book to read, or 5 books. Like for me, I always between 5 books, whether I finish it for the year or not. Or you're always listening to an audio book, or you always, you know, for me, I'm addicted to documentaries. Glenn will really about the documentaries. But the people who recognize that in order for them to get to where they want to go, in order for them to have achieve the vision, in order to make that vision real, you have to grow. You have to gain knowledge. And so for me, it's spreading knowledge, this show. It's spreading knowledge to those who are constantly looking for knowledge in a variety of ways.
And one of the things that I want to plug in there too, a lot of times when we think about knowledge, we're thinking about, we need to get a degree. We need to get knowledge could come in so many different forms. It can come in, you get in a degree. It can come in, you get in a certification, whatever your field is. And I'm a firm believer of this. If you're in a field, you should have knowledge about your field. So knowledge doesn't come. So for example, if you're in media, right? You should be able to have knowledge about media. It doesn't mean that you have to go and get a formal degree.
Or certification.
You don't have to get a certification.
Go to a workshop.
You can follow those workshops. Look at the
Conference.
magazines that do the conferences.
Travel to a media event. Something.
You know what I'm saying? And so if you are in academia, it should not always be that you have to get an academic degree.
Correct.
Travel and immerse yourself in a culture so you can learn. You know, and one of the things that I would always share with my students, my trip to Europe.
Right.
And when I see things in the textbook, I would say, well, okay, I saw this firsthand. Here's what
which is not even
level.
different. That's the best type of learning when you can experience what you see in the textbook.
Yes.
And that's why when I tell people I'm addicted to travel, I'm not just addicted for the pleasure of it, but
travel is not all about shopping.
And it's not about shopping. It's the learning. Thomas, you spend time in Czech Republic.
But if you go somewhere, what did you learn about the culture? What did you see that you can bring back to say incorporate in any area of your life?
And not only learn, but you are inspired to incorporate something like you say in your business, in your career, in your life, because you traveled and you picked it up.
Expands your knowledge.
Yeah.
And so I think we covered our areas, we cover our sphere, we cover our audience. What would you like to say to your audience before you end?
I just want to say, as you're listening to this show, as you're watching this show, continue to grow, continue to grow. Having a growth mindset is really what it's all about. If you want to get to where you want to get to, if you have a vision that you want to achieve, you have to grow so you could go.
Yes.
And go means get opportunities.
Yes. And before we close, I want to plug this in there. A lot of times when it comes to growing, we want to invest in everything else except our growth and development. Yeah. So we can invest in the car, the home, the kids, the travel, all the other things. But just to invest in a book, just to invest in a seminar. Sometimes
mentor, coach.
Invest in don't even go down that line, because I see you spend so much money spent on sitting at somebody's feet to learn and to glean from them. And so don't let money be a thing that causes you to not want to invest in your development as an individual, whatever area that you're in. And so that's my advice. Yeah. Be prepared to invest in it, whatever that means.
All right. I think that's a good place to wrap this up. Invest in your growth.
Yes. Grow
and go. See you later.
Keshelle out here.